Have you ever felt like something had changed inside you? But didn't you know exactly what? As if the places that were once familiar now seem strange, as if the repeated conversations lose their luster and even the surrounding smiles start to sound rehearsed. Maybe the world stays the same faces, the same scenery, the same commitments, but there's something about you that has started to move. An invisible seed that silently presses inside as if asking for air. It's subtle, but insistent. And it can be the first sign of something sacred, your spiritual awakening. But no one warns that this awakening does not arrive with lights, angelic music, or bells of destiny. It announces itself in the form of an inexplicable discomfort. A longing for something you don't know how to name. A restlessness that pulsates in the chest without having an apparent cause. And this is where many get confused. They think they are anxious, unmotivated, lost. But, in fact, they are being called. It's as if the universe put its hand on your shoulder and said, firmly, wake up. And those who listen, even without understanding, feel that there is no way to go back to sleeping inside. The beginning of the path of the chosen ones is exactly like this, confusing, clumsy, even lonely. While many imagine that spiritual evolution is made up of mantras and retreats with incense, the truth presents itself with much more depth and less glamour. Sometimes she arrives in the silence of a room at night. Other times, in the middle of a crowd in which you suddenly feel completely alone. There are those who feel it as a desire to disappear for a few days. Others, as an inexplicable desire to drop everything. It's not crazy. It is not an escape. It's the soul trying to get out of survival mode. And the more you try to convince yourself that everything is fine, the more the cracks appear. What I used to fill is no longer enough. What was once routine now weighs. And what you used to accept without thinking, now it irritates you, oppresses you, suffocates you. This is because what is awakening in you no longer fits in the old life. And even if there's still no clarity, there's a strong feeling that there's something bigger, a purpose hidden among the details of your day. Something that was dormant. But now he is beginning to open his eyes. So, if you have felt this break in belonging, this strange feeling of being out of place even though you are in the usual places, don't judge yourself. Perhaps you are just hearing, for the first time, the truest voice you have, the voice of your soul. And when she calls, it's impossible to ignore for long. The discomfort grows. Unrest spreads. And the external world can no longer silence what pulsates inside. This is the beginning. And he is yours alone. But if you're here, reading these words, you may have already understood, you're not alone. You're just waking up. Most people think that awakening spiritually is a conscious choice, made at a beautiful time of inner peace. But for those who are one of the chosen ones, the reality is different. The call does not come with flowers or warning. He arrives quietly, sometimes in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the chaos. It does not appear as a great revelation, but as an absence. A kind of hole in the chest that doesn't hurt, but bothers you. Something seems to be missing. But you still don't know what. You begin to notice small, almost imperceptible, but insistent signs. A mild anguish in situations that were once normal. A feeling of displacement within one's own home. A growing desire to disappear for a few days, not to escape from the world, but to escape from who you are being. Suddenly, you feel like you're living a borrowed life, like you're playing a role that you didn't write. And when this thought sets in, there is no longer any way to uninstall. That is the time when the activation of the soul begins. She doesn't scream. She whispers. It doesn't invade, it insinuates itself into the gaps of the day. When you're driving, doing the dishes, waiting for a bus. In the middle of the routine, a thought crosses, does this still make sense? And instead of responding, you feel a weird emptiness that carries more truth than all the certainties you've had so far. The soul is trying to come out of hiding. And the world outside, with its haste and noise, can no longer distract her. Trying to explain this to someone is frustrating. Because, on the outside, everything is fine. But inside, no. The smile is there. The commitments are being fulfilled. But there is something inside you that observes everything as if it were from the outside. As if you had awakened inside a dream that you used to call reality. And the feeling is clear: I don't belong to this anymore. But how to say this without sounding ungrateful? How to justify the desire to change everything, when everything seems to work? This is where many try to silence the call. They fill their schedules, plan trips, buy courses, change their hair, force themselves to be positive. But none of this solves it. Because the soul doesn't want distraction, it wants truth. And she will not be silent until she is heard. A simple practice can help: sit in silence for 10 minutes, without music, without a cell phone, without distractions. Just watch. You may be surprised at what your spirit has been trying to say for a long time. As the soul's activation deepens, the body begins to respond in ways that the mind does not understand. You wake up tired, even after a full night's sleep. You feel a light pressure in your head, an inexplicable tightness in your chest, or goosebumps that arise for no apparent reason. And the first reaction is to think of stress, anxiety, something clinical. But the exams come normal. The doctor says everything is fine. And you come home with the same question echoing: what's happening to me? What's happening is actually not physical, it's vibrational. When the soul begins to expand, the body needs to readjust. It's like changing the frequency of an antenna: there's noise in the process. You begin to notice that certain foods that were once common now cause discomfort. That hectic places make you nauseous. That people who talk too much exhaust you. That your skin crawls around certain environments or people, even if nothing has been said. These are spiritual symptoms, and they arise because your energy field is becoming more subtle, more sensitive, more selective. At this point, loneliness begins to cease to be a choice and becomes a necessity. You withdraw from social events not because you no longer like people, but because your body asks for silence. Because the energy of others starts to beat too hard, and you feel everything, even what no one says. Your perception sharpens. You begin to pick up on hidden intentions, unexpressed emotions, charged atmospheres. And if before you absorbed everything unconsciously, now you realize how much it drains you. But beware, this is not weakness. It's a sign that you're being refined. That your energy system is ceasing to function in defensive mode and beginning to operate in intuitive mode. Does the world seem noisier? It's because your internal hearing is sharper. Do certain lights bother? It is because your energetic vision is opening up. You begin to feel what you once just endured. And this sensitivity, although challenging, it is your new navigation tool. At this stage, you may feel awkward, even out of place. But no, you are becoming someone who perceives the invisible. And that requires silence, it requires care, it requires respect for your internal time. Practical tip: before bed, take a bath with coarse salt and herbs such as lavender or rosemary. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and feel yourself returning to your center. This is not just any ritual, it is a reunion with your original frequency. Once the sensitivity awakens, another profound change takes place, and it usually hurts more than all the others. Relationships begin to transform. People you laughed with, talked to for hours, felt intimate, now they seem distant, strange, as if they belonged to another life. Not because you stopped loving, nor because there was conflict. But because the energy has changed. And what united, he no longer holds. It is a silent pain. A type of grief that no one recognizes, but that burns. You are there, face to face with someone who was part of your history, but inside you feel, we are no longer at the same pace. The words ring empty, the eyes do not meet as before, and even the hug, which was warmth, now seems to contain a slight discomfort that no one can explain. The desire to move away does not come out of hurt. It comes by instinct. This is the point at which many blame themselves. They try to force encounters, maintain bonds, smile when the heart is quiet. But the more they insist, the more they tire. Because the soul, when awakened, no longer allows bonds that vibrate outside the truth. And the universe, in its silent wisdom, begins to remove from its path everything that no longer sustains its expansion. Friends move away. Partnerships fall apart. Important people start to leave your life, not because you failed, but because the mission now requires space. It is as if life itself began to make a spiritual pruning. Removing the excess. Releasing the branches that no longer bear fruit. And as painful as it is, this cleansing is necessary. Because the mission of the chosen one does not flourish on contaminated ground. It needs silence, clarity, connections that respect the new vibration that is emerging from within. If you are experiencing this estrangement, do not rush to fill the void. Respect it. The loneliness that comes after the rupture carries within it the fertile space of the new. And yes, it will still hurt for a while. You can cry over ties that don't come back. You can miss what was, even though you know it can no longer be. But the pain of disconnection is the price one pays for living in truth. And to live in truth, it is what his spirit came for. After the first losses, an even more delicate stage comes, and also deeper. Spiritual loneliness. It is not the same as the others. It is not a passing feeling of being alone. It is a kind of silence that settles inside, even when there are people around. You can be at a family lunch, in a conversation circle, surrounded by people you know, and still feel that you no longer belong there. It is as if your soul is in another time, in another frequency. And that, at first, scares you. Because you still love these people. He still wants to be together. But something within you begins to reject excess, superficiality, repetition. The talks are starting to seem forced. The subjects, shallow. And you find yourself smiling out of politeness, but empty inside. This disconnection is the soul's clearest invitation to sacred silence. She's saying, now, I need to talk. But you'll only listen to me if the world is silent for a moment. Most try to resist this phase. He runs after company. He occupies himself with distractions. He turns on the television, answers messages, accepts invitations he doesn't want. But all of this is anesthesia. And you feel, the noise no longer protects you. In fact, it bothers you. The soul wants silence. Not that uncomfortable silence of boredom, but the fertile silence of presence. Because it is there, between four walls and no distractions, that the spiritual downloads begin to arrive. Ideas. Intuitions. Sudden understandings. You realize that, standing still, doing nothing, you understand more than weeks of external effort. Because silence is not empty, it is a channel. It's a portal. It is ground where the seeds of your mission can finally sprout. And it is in this silence that you begin to remember who you are. Want a simple yet powerful exercise? Turn off your cell phone for an hour a day. No books. No music. No screens. Just you with you. At first, it may seem uncomfortable. But insist. What looks like loneliness, soon it reveals itself as a sacred presence. And then, at some point in this practice, you are surprised, that emptiness that scared you begins to welcome. The restlessness begins to silence. And his soul, finally, begins to speak. With the advance of awakening, a new layer emerges that usually confuses even the most conscious. The sensitivity intensifies in such a way that everything seems too much. The sounds are louder. The most aggressive lights. The strongest smells. You walk into a supermarket and feel the weight of people. He goes to a party and notices a deep tiredness, as if he were carrying emotions on his back that are not his own. And the truth is, you are. This energetic sensitivity is a rare gift, but at first it seems like a burden. You absorb the intentions, the feelings, even the lies behind the words. The body starts to react before you even understand why. A tightness in the stomach when meeting someone. A dizziness when entering a loaded environment. A shiver that arises with a song or news. This is not imagination. It is your expanding vibrational field. But the world was not made for those who feel this way. And for this reason, many who go through this phase are seen as too sensitive, problematic, difficult. But those who awaken spiritually know, this is not excess, it is refinement. You are learning to discern with the body, to listen with the soul, to perceive the invisible. And that takes courage. It requires choices. It requires saying no. You start refusing invitations without guilt. To leave toxic environments without explanation. To silence when everything asks you to react. And by doing so, you're not running away. It is preserving itself. He is learning to take care of his light as one protects a flame lit in the middle of a windstorm. The mission of the chosen ones begins there, to protect the fire within while the world still lives in the dark. Do you want to practice for this phase? Carry a protective stone with you, such as black tourmaline or amethyst. But more than that, respect your energy limits. They are not walls, they are portals. And every no you say to the drainer, it is a yes to what expands. You are not rejecting the world. He is learning to inhabit it with more truth. Have you ever looked at your watch and couldn't believe what you saw? As if 20 minutes had lasted forever. Or as if the day was gone in the blink of an eye. This feeling that time is no longer hitting with external reality is common in those who are awakening. At first, it seems distracting. Then, it becomes a doubt. But at some point, you begin to understand, time is changing because your perception is changing. As the world lives by timelines and goals, you begin to feel a call for another rhythm. Chronological time, clocks, appointments, deadlines, no longer guides you so strongly. What moves you now is something more internal, more intuitive. You feel like certain tasks seem urgent but no longer make sense. And others, previously ignored, now scream for attention, even without any deadline. This is not laziness. It's not disorganization. It is that your soul is disconnecting from artificial linearity and entering the frequency of presence. You begin to live in two worlds, one ruled by the hands, and another, by vibration. And this duality, at first, confuses. You try to follow the schedules, but something in you gets stuck. You make appointments, but you arrive with the feeling that you shouldn't be there anymore. It is disconcerting. But it's also liberating. This misalignment with time is a powerful spiritual symptom. It indicates that your consciousness is beginning to enter a state of flow, where everything happens at the right time, even if it's not on the agenda. And the more you surrender to this flow, the more you realize that life begins to reorganize itself. People arrive at the right time. Ideas come when they are needed. The coincidences multiply. And you start to trust intuition more than programming. Want to try it? Set aside a moment of your day, even if it's short, to live without a plan. Wake up and ask, what does my soul want to do now? And follow. It may seem simple, even silly. But this practice activates a deep reconnection with the soul's time. And the more you live by it, the more time stops controlling you, and begins to serve you. There is a moment in spiritual awakening when everything becomes quieter on the outside, but more restless inside. You no longer identify with the old version of yourself, but you still don't see clearly who you are becoming. The ties have changed, the routine has changed, the desires too. But the mission, that sense of purpose, is still hidden under subtle veils. You feel like you've come for something bigger. But he still doesn't know exactly what. This phase is marked by a kind of existential itch. Nothing seems wrong, but nothing seems right. You're living, working, doing chores, but with a slight sense of displacement, as if you're participating in a play that you know too much about. The world continues to spin outside, but something in you observes, quietly, waiting for an invisible order, a clear sign, a call with a name and address. And he doesn't come. At least, not in the way you expect. This is normal. The mission does not reveal itself with a title or a ready-made map. It first appears as a sacred nuisance. A feeling that you are where you should no longer be. A longing for a place you haven't visited yet. A passion for subjects that previously went unnoticed. And all of this together begins to push you to a path that no one has traced, because it will be opened by you. At this point, many try to force a definition. They create projects, move to another city, study everything at the same time. But nothing fulfills it. Because the mission of a chosen soul is not born of haste, it is born of listening. And listening, in this case, is more than meditating. It is to be present, whole, receptive to the invisible. It is trusting in the time of revelation. A transformative exercise. Write down everything you would do even if no one knew. Even without earning anything. Even in silence. This list will reveal more about your mission than any course. Because the soul knows. She always knew. And when you start to listen to what vibrates in the silence, the invisible begins to become direction. There comes a time in spiritual awakening when the soul simply does not allow any more pretense. No matter how hard you try to smile, to adapt, to say what others expect, something in you starts to twitch inside every time you act against your own truth. The body weighs, the throat closes, the energy freezes. What was once automatic now becomes painful. And then you realize, you can no longer live on appearances. You find yourself avoiding social gatherings. Refusing invitations that he had previously accepted out of obligation. You start saying no more often, and with less guilt. And what would once have been a cause for insecurity or embarrassment now comes with a strange sense of freedom. Because, in the end, you are respecting what you feel, and no longer what others expect. This is not selfishness. It is a return to the essence. But not everyone will understand. Some will judge you. They will say that you are strange, distant, closed. Others will try to get you back to being who you were before. But that before no longer exists. You can no longer perform in the convention theater. He cannot sustain empty conversations. He cannot wear masks that stifle his soul. And as difficult as it may be, this rupture is the birth of your spiritual integrity. Of course, there will be losses. People who don't keep up with their new pace. Spaces that used to welcome and now bother. Routines that no longer make sense. But instead of all that, something rare comes up, the peace of being who you are. The lightness of not having to explain yourself. The beauty of looking in the mirror and recognizing who stares back at you. This peace does not scream. It simply is. a practice for this moment. Every time you feel that you are pruning yourself, shutting up, molding yourself to please, stop. Take a deep breath. And ask, am I being true to my soul now? This question, asked with courage, can change the course of a day. Give a choice. Of a lifetime. Because living in truth can drive some away. But lying to yourself pushes you away from yourself. After all this, there comes a moment that has no return. A quiet and powerful point where you can no longer live as you used to, even if you wanted to. It is not a rational choice. It is an internal rupture. The old life is no longer useful. The disguises no longer fit. And the world, no matter how hard it tries to pull you back, can no longer seduce you with the same promises. At this point, the life mission may not yet be completely clear, but it is already alive. You feel as if something is breathing inside you, asking for passage, begging to manifest. Perhaps it still has no form, no name, no structure. But it has a pulse. It has presence. It is true. And that presence begins to reorganize everything, your schedules, your desires, your relationships, your decisions. The soul, now awakened, no longer tolerates what is false. You perceive more clearly who nourishes you and who sucks you. Who sees you, and those who only project. The silence, once frightening, has become home. Solitude, once painful, is now sacred. And time, once a tyrant, became an ally. You start to create from within, no longer to please, but to express. It is in this state of alignment that the invisible begins to work in your favor. The universe moves in strange ways, people show up at the right time, opportunities come out of nowhere, and even difficulties come with hidden teachings. Everything conspires, not to facilitate, but to confirm. Confirm that you are on the right track. That this path is yours. That this call is real. If you've come this far, it's not by chance. Those words touched a part of his soul that he already knew. You don't need to convince yourself anymore, you just need to accept it. Spiritual awakening is not an event. It's a crossing. And those who cross do not come back the same. Now tell me sincerely, are you ready to stop pretending and live with divine purpose? Are you ready to embrace your sensitivity as a gift, and no longer as a weakness? Are you willing to honor the call that the world does not hear, but that echoes within you every day? If something inside you said, yes, comment below, I woke up. Because there are others like you. And no chosen one walks alone. And if this message touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. What is to come will ignite even more truths within you.